I don't know whether you have ever spoken to somebody and then when they respond to you, the response that they give you is totally different. It wasn't what you communicated to them. It is not aligned to what you communicated to them.
Is trauma inevitable?
The most powerful thing that trauma does is that it rewires your brain. And I've seen people trying to get their friends out of abusive marriages, but this person keeps going back. Or if they don't go back to this relationship, they will again start dating somebody or marry somebody who is exactly the same way as their previous spouse. If you're not dealing with what happened to you, then your mind has a certain template and a certain kind of person that it feels comfortable about or around. And so you're likely to attract the same chaos that you grew up with unless you actually deal with those chaos.
How can someone be able to break free?
I myself have recovered from childhood trauma, and the kind of childhood trauma that I went through was emotional abuse from my mom. And one of the things that helped me to heal was realizing I used to think that I had anger issues because I used to think that my mom did this intentionally to destroy me, only for me to realize that number one, she herself had gone through childhood abuse from her mom.
Yeah.
She had gone through emotional abuse, and so she was basically a person who had not healed and was looking for a place where to now project that trauma and direct that trauma to the pain.
It's a cycle.
Our identity is formed by our experiences.
Yeah.
And so unless you heal from the wounds that you have, that you have been inflicted on in the past, then it becomes very hard for you to actually now get to the place that God created you for. It interferes with your identity and your purpose as a person. And that's why it's very important for people to heal, to be invested in their healing.
Welcome to the Identity Project podcast. This is where we get to have interactive conversations revolving around becoming so that we live victoriously and lead others to do the same. My name is Theidp, and thank you so much for being here. One, let me just start by the ones that are visiting here for the first time. Thank you so much. This is where you get to hit the subscribe button so that you can continue to live victoriously and lead others to do the same. For you who has been here this is like our 28th, 29th episode. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for everything. I appreciate each and every one of you. And also because of that, because I've been receiving a lot of feedback, one of the things that I saw, it's good because most of the feedback comes from Instagram, TikTok, and WhatsApp. I usually have prayers for between 9:30 to 10:30 p.m. on TikTok. This is the East African time, and I invite us all to be there. I know people will want us to go maybe to YouTube and other platforms. We are currently working on that. But in the meantime, thank you so much. You can be able to join us there for word of advice, counseling, prayer, and maybe something else that you will want us to talk about. Also, another thing is you can be able to get a copy of the Identity Project. This is the book that birthed the podcast, and you can get it on one Nuria online bookstore. They deliver across East Africa. 2, you can also get it via my website, www.kevintindi.com. And 3, you can get it on Amazon. This is the soft copy, and also you can get it on paperback. So thank you so much, so that we continue to walk through this journey of living victoriously so that we lead others to do the same. And today I have a guest, and one of the things that I've seen throughout the videos that I've done, over 20 episodes, and this is just the doing of the Lord. One of the things that I've seen people want to talk about and people share their stories has to deal with trauma. And so because of that, I saw it's good if I bring a professional to be able to talk about this so that we can be able to heal and live victoriously so that we lead other people to do the same. And today I have an amazing guest. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, thank you so much for honoring the invite and also being part of this. And for the sake of the subscribers, I think it's good if you can introduce yourself and then we'll get into what we are talking about.
Okay. So my name is Jane Gacheru. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession. I'm also an EMDR therapist. So basically, EMDR is a very specific training for trauma therapists. So that is actually my area of specialization, that plus marriage and family therapy.
Wow.
I'm also the founder of Clarity Counseling and Training Center.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That means we are in good hands. And so, Jane, since many people have talked and shared their stories, you find that some people are actually adults, but they're living their childhood in the adult. And this is as a result of trauma.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, as you walk us through this, you can be able to maybe define and take us through this session.
All right.
Yeah.
So basically, trauma is brought on by the effects of experiencing a horrifying event or series of events.
Okay.
Previously, trauma has been associated with things like war, the aftermath of war. In fact, even in the history of psychology, people first started discussing trauma after World War I and World War II.
Okay.
That's when treatment for trauma, people began to come up with different types of treatments for trauma. And so for the longest time, people have known trauma to be maybe an outcome of war, an outcome of events such as rape, or an outcome of accidents, or even an attack. You see, like, say, for example, thieves attack you, or even witnessing a very horrifying event like murder.
Yeah.
For some people, it's even exposure, and especially prolonged exposure to things that would normally give you or produce anxiety. For example, I remember a while back, one of my students, he is in the disciplined forces. He was talking about having to guard a body. Back in the day, having to guard a body because it was a foreigner's body for, I think, a whole 3 days, day and night. And so, of course, that means he was in the mortuary. So you can imagine that kind of prolonged exposure in such a setting, it's likely to induce trauma. And so that has been what trauma has been associated with for the longest time. But now, in this field, we are starting to also recognize the fact that even childhood trauma is actually a very valid kind of trauma, in the sense that people who in their childhood have gone through various traumatizing events, they are likely to have the very same symptoms and effects that another person who's gone through war, another person who's been abused. By this, abuse is also a very big cause of trauma, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, even emotional abuse.
Okay.
All these can cause trauma. And so when we are looking at trauma, we are looking at basically a set of symptoms that are likely to be produced by the events that I have mentioned.
You know, when you're talking, you reminded me about one of my friends whose brother used to serve in the US Army.
Yeah.
Of course, he left, but he said the moment he killed someone in war, his life changed completely. So maybe that was trauma manifesting. Okay.
Exactly. Because the thing with trauma, first of all, killing somebody is not an every other day event. And you're likely to, of course, have a reaction in the sense that you yourself will be horrified. The fact that you have taken a life, it's going to have an effect on you. And you're likely to have even problems. The symptoms of trauma, for example, maybe even having flashbacks, also nightmares.
Okay.
Finding yourself having what we call, you're being hypervigilant. You're always on the lookout. It's like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, that kind of thing. Yeah? So he himself was horrified. In as much as he's the one who killed someone, I'm imagining that event in itself also affected him enough to cause that high level of anxiety and trauma.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've talked about symptoms. Maybe you can continue to build on that, especially how it manifests on people that maybe they're adults, but they are walking in their childhood, or maybe based on something that happened to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, another very common symptom of trauma is being unable to regulate one's emotions. this is very common. It's just that we make it a joke in our society. Like, people talk about people with anger issues.
Yeah.
Most people actually who have a temper or difficulties regulating and managing their anger, in real sense, if you talk to that person, you realize that they may have been, in one way or another, gone through certain traumatizing events, and especially childhood trauma. Because what happens is that whenever you experience an event, say, for example, like emotional abuse as a child, physical abuse, even witnessing physical abuse, or even sexual abuse, it changes your brain. And so what happens is that it stagnates your brain. And so you're not developing, because the brain gets hit by that level, that high level of anxiety, to an extent of getting a shocker that stagnates it.
Okay.
So basically, we are saying that, what I'm saying is that it's possible for someone to be 50 physically, but emotionally speaking, this person is 10.
Okay.
Or even 13 or even 9. And so basically what that means is that what an adult would be capable of handling, this person is not capable of handling emotionally. So they are unable to handle any difficult emotions. Say, for example, whenever they experience fear, it comes out as anger because they don't know how to manage it. Whenever you try to hold this person accountable, what they do is get offended and get angry. I'm sure you've probably come across a couple of adults who throw tantrums as well. You see how we tend to, I think people are used to looking at mental health issues and imagining that a person with a mental health issue has to be the person maybe struggling with schizophrenia that needs to be admitted to a mental health hospital. But we have a lot of people suffering actually from mental health issues, just that people don't understand that they really are mental health issues. So again, you find an adult throwing tantrums. Why? Because emotionally speaking, they are younger than their biological age. And so they are unable to handle, again, the kind of strong and uncomfortable emotions that we are talking about. So just like a child, they'll throw tantrums, they'll manipulate people, they'll blackmail people. Again, that's another sign of emotional dysregulation.
Yeah.
And then another sign is usually people being, people withdrawing. That one is common. Becoming suicidal, because trauma can induce suicidal ideation.
Okay.
Because it can bring in a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. And sometimes even to an extent of even having hallucinations, maybe having auditory hallucinations. This person might be hearing voices, which can be quite frustrating. And then the flashbacks that you were talking about, tremors even. I don't know whether you have ever seen someone with body tremors. You see their hands and their legs,
like
this
fidgeting,
and sometimes just even having body tremors, like the body is just trembling by itself. And especially when this person looks like they are lost deep in thought, that could actually be someone who is struggling with trauma. And we are not talking about someone maybe who's been abusing alcohol and drugs, because those two can also induce the body tremors that we are talking about. Another effect is, again, I've talked about the hypervigilance. There are people who are usually hypervigilant, both physically and emotionally. Emotionally speaking, this is someone who's kind of like always lying in wait like a leopard for you to do something that triggers them, and they'll jump on you. So they can be very defensive. Number one, I think this is something that nowadays people are talking about, toxic workplaces, toxic colleagues, and all that kind of thing. And we see people who are very defensive to an extent that you cannot even give this person feedback. It's going to be trouble for you if you try.
and who even accepts feedback? Many people that I've known, they will never want to hear feedback.
Exactly. Because probably this person, they were brought up in an environment that was highly critical. They were emotionally abused. They were emotionally neglected. And so because of that, giving them feedback is a threat to their identity. And anything that is a threat to a human being's identity is going to invoke certain feelings that most people are unable to handle. Hence the anger, hence the defensiveness. This stance of I'm always ready and willing to fight. Even in trauma, we talk about the fight, or
flight,
or flight, or phoning. So there are some people who are ever in flight mode. So these people who are forever in fight mode are the people I'm saying who are very defensive. Then we have the people whose trauma personality becomes phoning. So this is somebody who's the trauma teaches them to lie down. So they don't know how to stand up for themselves. They don't have boundaries with people. They want to please people all the time. And that's why we call them now the people who fawn, because it's like trauma paralyzed them to an extent that the only thing they can do is to agree with their environment so that they can survive. Basically, all these trauma personalities are born out of a need for survival, because even the fighter is trying to survive so that, hey, you don't again, I don't want to again be criticized, or I'm trying to avoid what happened to me in childhood. Then we have the people who are constantly in flight mode. So the person constantly in flight mode basically we call it escapism. So this person will try everything and anything to run away from the reality of what is going on within them. So people run through working. Some people are workaholics, and it's not really because they want to work hard. They think they do. But in real sense, they have grown up to find refuge in work.
So they are running away from something.
They are running away from something. Some people have run away using religion. And I'm saying religion because it is one thing to know God. It is another to be religious. So I'm talking about being ritualistic and sometimes even using the things of God to run away from your reality. And so this person again does not. You'll find this person in church, but in real sense they are not transformed.
Are you able to give us like a case scenario?
Yeah.
Where someone is like using like religion to run away from something.
Yeah. So we have people who I'm pretty sure. You remember there's this musician a while ago, and she got beaten by her husband used to abuse her. And so we have a number of people hiding in church with abusive behavior. But then how do they explain it away? God says, as the man, I should be ABCD.
Yeah.
So hiding behind, even giving the Bible their own interpretation, so that it actually enables them to continue behaving in the way that they want to behave.
Okay.
Then you have sometimes again, you'll see people who get so absorbed in the things of church, you will never see them at home. So Sunday to Sunday, this person from 6 a.m. before everybody wakes up to 6, maybe not even 6 p.m. because 6 p.m. is early. Probably they'll come back when people are going to sleep. And what were they doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I was in church, I was doing this, I was cleaning, I was helping with this. And truly they were there. But again, they are using that as a way of running away. It's a form of false righteousness. Yeah. So again, this is, people could be hiding using religion and even giving excuses like not spending time with their family because I have to do this for church. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. But basically, just trying to keep busy. Some people also use, again, alcoholism and use of drugs is a very common way of escapism. You ask many people who use alcohol and drugs to a point of addiction. In real sense, they're actually running away from something.
Yeah, because I remember when I was serving in the youth ministry, there was a certain person who, when people were leaving, he will stay behind. And I would ask, how comes you're not going home? Because people have left. And he says, as in, I just don't want to go home now because I still feel I need to be in church and everything. And he wasn't like speaking the real issue, but he was saying like, I just need to be here because I'm only here for one Sunday. So let me just be here. Now it's ringing now. Yeah.
Yes. Some people also use relationships and sex to run away. A lot of people have been branded as sex addicts, but in real sense, it's not that they are sex addicts per se. They are using sex to run away from the reality of who they are, from dealing with themselves.
I did not see it being this way. And I know we'll get to how someone can heal. When you were talking, you reminded me
Yeah.
of something, and this is part of a book. I wrote the first book where there was this young man who went home. He used to stay with the stepmom.
Yeah.
And so he went home and he entered the house. He was very small. Entered the house with shoes that had mud. And the stepmom had just cleaned the house. As in, the stepmom threw a hot iron on him. And that guy, from that day on, the house is always clean. As in, the house has to be clean because of something that happened to him. Yeah.
And actually, that's the other thing with trauma. Most people who've gone through trauma, especially childhood trauma, are very controlling because that's because they have to try as much as possible to control their external environment. But in real sense, it's because they feel helpless to control their internal environment. So because there's a turmoil inside, they try to clean up the outside. So they'll try as much as possible. They are obsessed with being clean. And it's good, cleanliness is good, but I'm talking, there's an obsession. And we actually, there's something we call OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm not saying that everybody who does that has this disorder, but we have a cleaning compulsion. And sometimes people try to manage their anxiety using that compulsion to clean.
How can you separate the two? Someone's trauma manifesting and someone just being clean. Yeah.
Someone's trauma manifesting is that you cannot, there's a way you can dedicate, let me give I've heard of people who will not even share a bed with their spouses because they don't want you to dirtify them. They don't want to be dirtified by their spouse. You see, that's now out of the ordinary. So that's how you know there's something wrong, because that's out of the ordinary. Or someone cleaning all the time to an extent that I have, say, for example, I clean my office in the morning I am cleaning, at lunchtime I am cleaning, in the evening I'm cleaning before I go. Then of course that means there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Because being clean means that as long as my environment is habitable, and it is orderly, that should be sufficient. But then if I feel the need to clean every other time, even while by the physical, eye, you can tell that this environment is clean, then it means that, it could be pointing to something else that I'm trying to actually manage. So that's how you differentiate between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember a friend of mine used to tell me this about his friend. So it's a friend telling me about the friend who now it seems like he was going through a traumatic event because that friend had money. That friend had a beautiful house and everything.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, because they were going for a sleepover, and so this guy was supposed to sleep. This guy told him not to sleep in the bedroom, but he will sleep in the sitting room, but he will not sleep on the carpet.
Yeah.
Because he will make the carpet dirty. But you remove the carpet and then you put the mattress down. And I was like, as in, really?
Yes. Because basically, and that's why I'm saying, when it's as a result of trauma, you can tell, because this is someone who will go, they feel very uncomfortable when things are not a certain way. This person will literally even start fidgeting. And that's why most people who have control issues also have anger issues, because when they can't control, then the next thing is anger. And of course, it's impossible to control everything. The next thing that will come in is anger. And that cleaning, that compulsion to clean will constantly make them only feel relieved when they have cleaned something.
Okay.
And so that is that's why it will keep them constantly revolving around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that also trauma may be seen in people, especially in the workplace? In the workplace, I think in family, at home, and also maybe in relationship and marriage. Yeah.
A lot of trauma, a lot of people who've gone through trauma are likely, let me give specific examples and associate them to the source.
Okay.
Let's talk about a child who's grown up in an abusive home. Maybe physical, they've witnessed physical abuse. Maybe the parents keep fighting, or they themselves have been victims of physical abuse. There's a high likelihood that that child will either end up being the abuser, so that later on, when they themselves get into relationships, they will physically abuse the other person.
Okay.
And I think that is why most people call that narcissism. Not to say that, well, it might not be 100% accurate, the definition of narcissism, but I'm just trying to help people understand so that this person loses their capacity for empathy. That's what trauma does. When someone gets too much exposure to pain, and that kind of trauma, especially in childhood, they start losing their capacity for empathy, and so they tend to become abusers. The other possibility is that a child, again, who's gone through the same circumstances is likely to now become the fauna that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So they tend to constantly find themselves getting into relationships where they are getting abused. They get beaten, they get emotionally abused. And even if you try and get them, I've seen people trying to get their friends out of abusive marriages, but this person keeps going back. Or if they don't go back to this relationship, they will again start dating somebody or marry somebody who is exactly the same way as their previous spouse.
You attract what you're running from.
Exactly. Because you see, if you're not, if you're not dealing with what happened to you, then your mind has a certain template and a certain kind of person that it feels comfortable about or around. And so you're likely to attract the same chaos that you grew up with unless you actually deal with those chaos in your mind.
Yeah.
The same, again, when it comes to sexual abuse, someone who was sexually abused in childhood most probably will end up, most of them end up being abusers themselves. So they repeat the cycle. If they don't end up being abusers, they tend again to attract sexual abusers. I don't know whether you've ever encountered people who've been raped several times. And sometimes they were raped by people that they knew. But because of their previous trauma, they didn't have the ability to discern that this is not somebody that I should be around.
I was watching this documentary on this musician in the States, where he was charged for rape cases. But when I watched the documentary, it now became clear that when he was young, he passed through the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Because it means that this person, we call it trying to master your trauma. So most people will either will mostly repeat the events of their past, either from a point of them being the party that is the aggressor or the victim.
I'm listening.
And so I think we were talking about the effects of trauma.
Yeah, we've talked about in relationship, we've talked about upbringing,
Yeah.
childhood, a child who has gone through physical, and now we've talked about the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing is, especially with people also tend to become, with sexual trauma, you see people again repeating the trauma or trying to master the trauma by becoming very sexually, should I say, promiscuous, in the sense that you find this person has several sexual partners. Some go to the extent of even becoming commercial sex workers. But in real sense, when you talk to this person, it's not really because they want to sleep around just for the sake. It's because that trauma is driving them to try and get some form of release, to try and master the trauma and the anxiety. And so they find themselves again repeating the very same thing that traumatized them earlier on in their lives. And I've even encountered people who, because of, again, sexual abuse in childhood, they are unable to even have normal relationships unless it's a purely sexual relationship. Yeah.
Okay. And now that we are seeing that trauma is actually, let me be careful by saying this, is actually part of life. And how can someone be able to break free from it?
Yeah. So there are several ways, and I think I'm going to start with maybe how mostly childhood trauma. Number one is to forgive.
Okay,
it sounds unbelievable. It sounds, almost when you tell someone who's gone through trauma or you ask them to forgive the person who actually traumatized them, it may sound insensitive, but it is actually one of the ways to heal. Because when you forgive this person, it means then it reduces the instances where you start repeating the trauma in your mind. You rehearse. Most people rehearse the trauma. That is what makes it impossible for people to heal, because they keep on rehearsing the trauma, especially in their minds. And what I mean by rehearsing the trauma is maybe like sitting down and thinking, remembering what happened, and then you start crying, you start again dwelling on that particular event. What is happening is that you're reopening old wounds.
And as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. So you become that which you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the more you rehearse the trauma in your mind, the more you begin even to turn to ways of coping that are actually unhealthy, which we call defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see a lot of people who have suffered previously from childhood trauma, they themselves are manipulative.
Interesting.
It's a protective mechanism. They have a tendency to lie. It's a protective mechanism. The anger is a form of defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So they deflect. That way they don't have to deal with reality. So basically, the more you continue to dwell on it, the more your brain now starts coming up with ways of self-protecting mechanisms that are actually not helping you to deal with reality at all.
Okay.
So forgiveness is a very important thing. And when most people wonder how exactly do I forgive? And in therapy, one of the ways I like to ask people I like to ask people, what do you think caused this person to abuse you the way they did? Most people stay with the pain and the hurt because we imagine that this person was very intentional, like they had set out in their hearts to hurt me or to harm me. But then in real sense, when they start exploring the real reason as to why this person did what they did, number one, maybe it was never about you. They themselves were wounded. Like I remember, I'm actually, I myself have recovered from childhood trauma. And the kind of childhood trauma that I went through was emotional abuse from my mom. And one of the things that helped me to heal was realizing I used to think that I had anger issues because I used to think that my mom did this intentionally to destroy me, only for me to realize that number one, she had gone through childhood abuse from her mom.
Yeah.
She had gone through emotional abuse, and so she was basically a person who had not healed and was looking for a place where to now project that trauma and direct that trauma to the pain.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. So now I became the easiest target to direct that pain to. Was it unfair? Of course. But then again, did she decide in her mind that I was going to destroy my daughter? No. So sometimes also, looking at this situation through the help of a professional and understanding that this person did not set out to hurt me intentionally, that it wasn't about me, then it helps people to be able to forgive. So even looking at what have you told yourself about why this person did what they did to you?
Yeah.
Because most of the times this is just another person who's wounded and using you, trying to use you again as an outlet.
Yeah.
Number two, another thing.
Before you get to number two, sorry. There's a quote I saw on forgiveness. They say that forgiveness is acknowledging that people make mistakes. And also, when you think about the people that have hurt you, you have the power to wish them well. One of the challenges, especially when it comes to forgiveness, and now this is biblical, there's this story in the book of Matthew that talks about someone who owed the master a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then he was forgiven, and that was money that he could not even repay, even when it comes to like 10 years and 20 years. But then he went to someone who owed him some money. And he started to strangle him, pay me. But this man was saying, please give me time, I will pay you. And this person owed him 100 denarii. 100 denarii during those days was like, you take 100 days. One day was equivalent to 1 denarii. So it's like he was telling him, please give me 100 days, I will pay you back.
Yeah.
But this man who had been forgiven something that he won't even forgive, he couldn't even repay, had been forgiven, but he's going to someone who could have paid him. And then when the master heard, because the people reported the matter, the master said, take him to the place of torment and torture. So I'm trying to see that also when we do not forgive, think about torture.
Torment.
Yes. And I liken it to this because I spoke about it in another podcast. It's like you are leaving a door where the enemy will come. Now these are like demons to torture you. You're talking about you rehearse. And you see the language of the enemy is distraction. So the enemy comes and tells you, you do not deserve these good things. You should live and fight back. As in, why should you forgive that person and everything? And I think one of the hardest things for people to do is after you've known that it's not you that this person inflicted the pain. It's actually them who are projecting on you. And now how do you forgive yourself? Because you may be in a place where, because the process of going through such may be, why did I even allow myself to be in that space that there was commotion and then I ended up being like raped? Why did I end up in that place where people were running away but I chose to take that route and then I was mugged? And these things happen. Because sometimes people tend to feel sorry for themselves but they cannot forgive themselves. So how can someone be able to forgive themselves?
All right. So forgiving oneself, I like to ask people this. Say, for example, this person got into a relationship that really, where they were abused, and now they are blaming themselves for having gotten into such a relationship. And especially when it's coming from a place where they were, again, traumatized in childhood. Because when you get traumatized in childhood, remember I said you're likely to, again, get into very unhealthy relationships with people. I usually like to ask them whether they think they were actually in the right state of mind, not to excuse or to maybe make them think that they cannot make the right choices. But if we say that trauma is able to freeze your mind so that you remain stuck at the age of 13 or 12, if you're that person at 25, but emotionally speaking, you're 13, how able do you think, or how capable do you think you are to make the right decision in as far as selecting the right partner is concerned? And most people come to realize, oh, by the way, I wasn't equipped actually. I didn't have the skills, the necessary skills to help me actually select the right partner. And so now when you think about it that way, it becomes easier to forgive yourself because, how fair would it be again for you to now start judging a 12-year-old? Because you were 12, literally, it's just that your body was 25. How fair was it for you to now judge a 12-year-old for making such choices? And so that compassion and empathy towards self comes from understanding where I was at mentally and emotionally speaking when I made that decision. And also accepting oneself as an imperfect person, because we are all imperfect as human beings. And the minute we start accepting that we are imperfect, then it becomes easy to now start forgiving ourselves of mistakes that we make. Yes.
So that we also extend grace to ourselves.
Yes.
Because we are becoming.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. Number 2?
Another way of healing from trauma is by basically stop re-traumatizing yourself.
Okay.
And most people are re-traumatizing themselves without knowing. Because I like to liken re-traumatizing oneself to opening old wounds. You keep opening them. Of course, the more you keep opening them, they won't heal. So how are people re-traumatizing themselves? Bad relationships. We might not be in a position in as far as skills are concerned to select the right people to be in relationships with. And I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, even friendships. But again, most of us would admit, like I know, for example, myself, before I healed, I used to get into the wrong kinds of relationships. My friends could see and tell me, but then again, I did not have the discipline to walk away from that. I did not, it's like I was waiting to get hurt again to know that I got myself into trouble. So that ability to now be, to stop, to stop trying to seek, and how people re-traumatize themselves, by the way, is by thinking, let me talk about this because then people might be able, it might help people understand. It's because most of the times people re-traumatize themselves because they are looking for the same person who failed them in another person.
Oh.
Say, for example, your mother abused you, did not accept you, or rejected you. You're likely to only date people or have even platonic relationships with people who are emotionally unavailable, just like the parent who emotionally neglected you.
Okay.
And so most of the times people are in those relationships because they are seeking for their mother or their father in this person. So anybody who has the same behavior as the parent who neglected them, they think that finally getting the acceptance of this person or this person's attention it's like you're going back to the past now and trying to capture your father's or your mother's attention.
Yeah.
And so you'll constantly go after people who are like them. And of course, they'll end up rejecting you over and over again. So you end up re-traumatizing yourself instead of healing, because you're trying to heal through other people.
And time is going.
And time is going, and you're
Yes.
repeating the same pattern. Because what I've noticed is with most people, when they come for therapy and I'm asking them to tell me, and I usually ask people, and especially if it's a relationship trauma, tell me about your past 3 relationships. And there's always one thing that comes out. There's a pattern. They have literally been dating the same person. And when I ask them now, tell me about your friends, they literally have surrounded themselves with the same person, but in a different scheme. So what are they looking for? They are looking for this person's acceptance who rejected them in the past, but through other people. So they are looking to heal through other people, and therefore, in effect, re-traumatizing themselves. And so one has to own up to themselves and see there's a pattern, that there's something I'm looking for. And I'm looking for it from people who actually possess the same characteristics as this person who hurt me in the past. And I need to now actually accept the reality of things, that there's no way someone behaving like someone who hurt me in the past is going to be the source of my healing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so another way also that people can heal from trauma is by fixing their minds.
Fixing their minds.
Fixing their minds.
Thing,
It's a mind thing. Why? Because, and this is something that will need the help of a professional. Because in as much as I've seen how people struggle even when they come for therapy, before they learn how to manage their thought process. And the reason why I'm talking about fixing our minds is because trauma, the most powerful thing that trauma does is that it rewires your brain.
Okay.
So the way you thought before, you now got traumatized, becomes different from the way you think after a traumatizing event.
Because it makes you look at yourself differently. The way you view God,
Yes.
the way you view life, the way you view people.
Exactly.
It changes everything.
The way you view the world, it changes. It changes everything, and so it can even change your ability to interpret situations.
Okay.
So that you stop interpreting situations according to the reality of things, and you now start interpreting situations according to the reality in your mind.
Okay.
I don't know whether you have ever spoken to somebody, and then when they respond to you, the response that they give you is totally different. It wasn't what you communicated to them. It is not aligned to what you communicated to them. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
Yes.
And so, for example, you've told someone something, and then they start telling you, oh, unafikiria mimi ni mjinga sasa? And you're like, my God, I never said such a thing.
Yeah.
Because this person, they have interpreted what you have said very differently from from the meaning that actually you gave it. And so that means that trauma has rewired their brain to an extent of now they perceive information, they perceive situations very differently. The mechanism that the brain uses to interpret information has been interfered with. And so the brain needs correcting.
Because I'm seeing these are the people that we come across on the road. These are people we come across at our workplaces. These are people, maybe some are our children, our siblings, our relatives. Some are even the people that we work with, school with. And I'm seeing why this is so key, especially for people to know that if you're dealing with someone who is manifesting trauma, and maybe it's you.
Yeah.
Because we all need to walk through the path of healing. And I like the fact that you've talked about forgiveness. You've talked about not to
retraumatize oneself.
To re-traumatize, and now the mind thing.
So our thoughts are a very powerful thing, because thoughts drive emotions and they drive behavior.
Okay.
So for example, if out of anger I choose to pour hot water on you, it is because my thoughts, first of all, the way I interpreted what you said or what you did, produced a certain emotion. And that emotion maybe overwhelmed me to an extent of informing now the current behavior of throwing hot water on you, which is now an extreme reaction to maybe something that you said or did. Why? Because I have not learned how to manage my thought processes.
Okay, because this thing is happening because someone can do something because you said something.
Exactly.
And you justify, because you said this, that's why I did this.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, that is what happens when our brains have been altered by trauma, because you stop being led by yourself and you're led by other people's words and actions, which is a very dangerous place to be in. Because then that means that literally you are not self-governing. The decisions that you're making are not as a result of what you know as a person. They are not as a result of your values as well.
Okay.
Yes. So the belief systems that we have, the principles by which we live in this world, are governed by our brain and how it perceives information and interprets information.
Okay. Do you have maybe a practical illustration of how someone who comes with the changed reality on self, God, the world around them, people, and now they can be able to come up with a script that is off of the traumatic event that has been controlling them? Yeah.
You mean a healed person?
Yeah.
Let me give an example of myself. So previously, before I healed, I used to look at God as a very distant, it's someone, a being who exists somewhere in the distance. And so had you asked me what the love of God is, I didn't know exactly what that, I thought you only go to God to ask him for things, but I didn't know that he actually loves people and he actually loves me. So it was a new reality to me to understand that God is actually interested in me as a person and actually loves me as a person. And number two, also, I realized after I healed that I didn't know how to receive love. Because previously, had you asked me before, the way trauma had affected me was that I was the fighting now kind of person. My way of dealing with it was now I was the fighter. And I was fighting, why? Because I thought I had to protect myself. Nobody cares about me. So those are the belief systems that the trauma had formed in my mind. Nobody cares. You're all by yourself in this world. You have to defend yourself, or you have to fend for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly in that survival mode where I have to fight off people. I have to struggle to survive. I can't rely on anybody. I can't trust anybody. Nobody is capable of truly loving me. In fact, and the belief systems, the beliefs I had about myself was that, I wasn't lovable. And so when I healed is when I started actually realizing that, yes, I'm imperfect as a person, but that does not mean that I'm not lovable. And I understood that now actually God actually is interested in me as a person and he loves me as a person. So even understanding the concept of God as a father for me was very difficult, because both my parents neglected me emotionally. And so understanding that God is actually a father who's invested in and interested in my life, to provide, to protect, the very same things that are associated with a father.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that before. I only understood now, from now, a point of when I healed is when I truly understood now, even God's character. That's when I started seeing that. And so even these belief systems that I had about myself and other people now are dealt with through the healing process.
Wow, it's interesting, because why would you believe in someone you cannot see if you've struggled with someone you can see?
Exactly.
And another thing that I'm seeing this from scripture, I usually paraphrase Romans 12, 1-2, where it says, I beseech you by the mercies of God, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I usually say that it is with our minds that we serve God.
Yes.
Because the more we get to feed on the word of God, the more now we find that we are healing from all these traumatic events. And let me paint it this way. The New Testament was written in Greek, and the word transformed, in fact, it starts by saying, do not be conformed by the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your minds. The word transformed comes from a term, a scientific term, metamorpho, that speaks about how a butterfly comes into being.
Yeah.
So the butterfly comes into being from an egg, I think it's larva or pupa, and then it goes all the way to an adult.
The metamorphosis.
Yes,
Yeah.
metamorphosis. And it gets to minister to us in the sense that we have to be in spaces that we allow the word of God to inform us, and to break the reality that we've known because of the traumatic event. And for me now, I'm starting to see, because I can talk about a number of traumatic events, but let me not go there. But I'm seeing how when I got born again, in 2007, December 2nd, from 2008, there is no day I've missed reading the Bible. And that's why there were times it will be easy for me to respond in anger. There were times it will be easy for me to respond based on the traumatic event. But the more I've been reading the word, I'm seeing how it is with my mind that I'm serving God.
Yeah.
Because also from the story of this guy, the prodigal son, after he had spent everything, the Bible says when he came to his senses, when he came to his mind, he said, I will go back to my father's, because that is where now I am able to function well. And as a man thinks, whatever you think about, and if we get to the place that we change our reality and to make it God's reality, whereby it's the word of God that is informing every decision and how we are able to also heal, we will be able to live victoriously.
Very true. I actually encourage, one of the things that I encourage my clients to do, and especially my clients who are believers, is to meditate on the word of God.
Interesting.
Because meditating on not just reading, but meditating, digesting, letting it settle in your mind, in your heart.
Yeah.
Because what it starts to do is that it's like formatting a drive.
Yeah.
So it starts to clean up whatever it is that is within you, that is actually troubling you, anything that is contrary to the will of God, and all these things that we are talking about, actually, even the trauma, because we weren't meant to live a life of torment. The word of God will help to clean that out and to set even your brain straight.
Yeah. And you're reminding me of this quote. I can't remember it perfectly, but it says, good habits are difficult to form, but easy to live with.
Exactly.
Bad habits, on the other side, they are easy to form, but difficult to live. But what do we do? For you to develop good habits, you keep on doing the good habits over and over and over again. And then after a period of time, you will find that you've done away with the bad habits. And so meditation is very, very key.
Very true. So that's also another way that one can now start training their minds.
Yeah.
By reading the word of God, by meditating on it. Another thing that I've seen help people to heal from trauma is also basically, I'm trying to look for the right words to put it, but let me talk about being able to listen to oneself.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying I'm struggling to look for to get the right word is, some people might say, oh, now we are encouraging, is it humanism? or what do people call it?
Yeah.
No, not really, but all of us we have a God-given mechanism within us that is a compass that is able to direct us in terms of right or wrong.
Yeah.
And most people will call it different things according to now your relationship with God.
Yeah.
But the truth is, and the fact of the matter is, all of us have been given that ability.
Yeah.
But most of the times, because of most people who have been affected by trauma, will go against that in the sense that I know that this is not the right relationship for me to be in. Deep down, people will tell you, by the way, deep down, I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but I still went ahead and did it. Or I knew I shouldn't have allowed this person to do this to me. Maybe it's someone who's been harassing you at the office. They've been putting you down. There's something within you telling you, by the way, you need to have boundaries with this person.
Yeah.
But still, the person, the wounded person within you is telling you, hey, tusionge. What will people think of us?
Yeah.
Now people will think we are being too much. Let us not talk so that we can be accepted. So that's the voice that I'm referring to. Your true self, that mechanism you've been given by God, is going to tell you, no, that was disrespectful.
Yeah.
You ought to ask this person or to have a conversation with this person in such a way that they now start respecting you, or they don't treat you like that. But we put that down, we push that away, we muzzle that voice, and we say, no, let me just do what is likely maybe to impress people, what is likely to make me get accepted by other people. And in so doing, we find ourselves now again, we are basically going through the same things that traumatized us in the first place, and it becomes difficult for us to even heal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Another thing that I've seen helps people to heal from trauma is also self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance.
Because most people, remember we said that trauma changes the way you look at yourself.
Yeah.
And so most people have been traumatized to an extent that the way they see themselves is in very bad light. And so they are likely to criticize themselves, think badly of themselves. But the minute you begin to now accept the fact that, first of all, as a human being, you're imperfect, and you begin to accept yourself fully as you are, both for your imperfections and also for your strengths, now you can begin to appreciate that which you have been blessed with as a strength and be able to utilize it. And at the same time, you can realistically look at your imperfections and see how you can work on them so that they do not become a disadvantage to yourself.
Yeah.
Not that you can be able to heal yourself of 100% of the imperfections, but we can go through life with these imperfections without them becoming a problem to ourselves and a problem to other people. Only if we are willing to accept ourselves, because then it stops becoming a thorn in our flesh. But as long as you're not accepting yourself, then you'll constantly again find yourself, either you are struggling with forgiving yourself, you're struggling with even setting boundaries with other people. And so you keep, again, it takes us back to that cycle of re-traumatizing self. And again, you will keep on now thinking of, reliving the past because you're stuck in a place where you're busy self-rejecting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm saying this conversation is very key, especially for people who might not know they're going through trauma, but indeed they're carrying trauma, so that they're able to deal with this as early as possible.
So basically, and something else actually has come into my mind. There's a way people keep themselves tied to trauma by continuing to stay in the habits that formed the trauma in the first place. And basically what I'm talking about is we all, let me give an example of a family. Most of the times people who've been traumatized in childhood is because they come from dysfunctional families.
Okay.
So I myself came from such a family where our emotional pattern was yelling at each other. That was the family's emotional pattern. We didn't know how to communicate with each other unless we were shouting, shouting, screaming, yelling at each other, trying to control each other, pushy people, basically.
Maybe you are the ones who came up with, why are you shouting?
No, in fact, it was such a norm that nobody is asking. Nobody is asking, why are you shouting? And so as an adult, for me to heal, it came to a point where I recognized that I am stuck in doing the very same things that we used to do in our family because they are achieving a certain agenda for me.
Yeah.
Because when I shout or yell at me, then somehow I intimidate you. So because that works for me, I keep on repeating the same behavior without understanding that I'm actually holding back my healing by continuing to actually participate in the very same thing that actually formed the dysfunction that I was struggling with. And so for most people, it would be looking at your family. I've encountered people who want to continue, participating in the same family drama that hurt them in the first place. So that if in your family people, there's madness, there's chaos, you get right into those chaos and forget that you are on your journey of healing. If it's the shouting, if it's the screaming, if it's the calling each other and insulting each other, you participate in that, and then only for you to get back now and start feeling guilty about it. And now you're even becoming anxious because in that process, the turmoil, the chaos, they actually cause anxiety. And you're wondering why you're stuck there. It's because, again, literally, you've gone back to the pigsty. Let me put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's about the habits. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I think even as we are about to come to the end, is trauma inevitable?
No, unfortunately. The only thing that differs is the level, is the extent to which different people have been traumatized. Some people have faced more adverse conditions than others, and so for them it's likely to be severe. But in real sense, for as long as you're interacting with people, there's likely to be there's likely to be some form of trauma or the other that someone has gone through. It's just that now for different people, things are different, and so some people may have gone through something that was not severe or serious enough to cause them serious trauma or serious symptoms of trauma. And that's where forgiveness comes in, because you see, like now, trauma that maybe comes from our upbringing. Our parents are human beings, and that's one of the things. In fact, that's another way to heal from trauma. How do you perceive, and especially if the trauma came from how you were parented? I have found that most people are unable to heal from childhood trauma because we placed our parents on such a pedestal. We do not see them as human first. We only look at them in terms of their roles. Your role as a father, your role as a mother, and usually the belief system behind that will be you shouldn't have. You're supposed to be a perfect person. As a parent, you are supposed to protect me. You are supposed to. Forgetting that this person is first of all human. And so, I like to ask people, when you look at your father or your mother now and you separate their role from their parenthood and you look at them as a human being, how capable do you think they are or they were of giving you what you wanted from them? And most people now start admitting to themselves that, in fact, they are not capable. And so if they are not capable, then, what does that tell you about now? What to do about it? So the forgiveness now becomes easier because now you start seeing that this person is as imperfect as I am. And so the wounds that they inflicted on me came from those imperfections. It's only that now I had different expectations of them by virtue of their role as a parent that I got so deeply wounded and so deeply hurt. Against the role, again, the purpose of this is not to excuse a parent's harmful behavior. It is simply for now you as an adult child of maybe an emotionally neglectful or abusive parent to start separating the two, their humanity from their parenthood, so that you can now see them objectively and you're able to even forgive them, understanding that they don't have the capacity, they didn't and don't have the capacity to be the father or the mother you wanted them to be.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, I'm saying as long as we are living in a fallen world, trauma will be there because the world is sinful, there are evil people, there is sin, Satan is just around trying to cause mayhem, and his language is, let me say, trauma is at the back of of distraction and everything. And I'm saying trauma will be part, but the good thing is we have God, who is the one who is able to help us through this journey when it comes to forgiveness, when it comes to how we think, when it comes to how we are raising children. We can now be able to help them to live victoriously in the midst of trauma being not being inevitable. And we will be able to also help other people so that we know that in the midst of what is happening, we can point them back to the person who is able to heal. In fact, there's this scripture that I forgot to bring. It's in Psalm 34 verse 18 that God is in the midst of the brokenhearted and those that are crushed in spirit. The word crushed in Hebrew speaks about something that you are not able to get out of, something that is weighing you down, that you're not able to get out of. But God, in the midst of what is happening, He is with the people that have been brokenhearted and crushed in the spirit. So if there's something that is weighing you down, if there's something that is, as in you cannot get it out, God is able to help you to get out and heal from this.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people, even believers alike, we lose out on the benefits of knowing God and having a relationship with God because we don't understand what He has provided for us. And because God is very interested in our emotional healing. He's very interested in the healing of the soul because He understands that our identity is formed by our experiences. And so unless you heal from the wounds that you have, that you have been inflicted on in the past, then it becomes very hard for you to actually now get to the place that God created you for. It interferes with your identity and your purpose as a person. And that's why it's very important for people to heal, to be invested in their healing, because we are seeing, a lot of people go into marriage again without, first of all, going through a healing process. And what do? Eventually you find that you chose the wrong person, which means that again you get traumatized all over again. It interferes with your ability to achieve your purpose as a person. And so it's important for people to now learn how to actually take that path of growth and healing for the sake of their purpose, for the sake of living out their purpose here on earth and their calling, the calling of God upon their lives.
Even as we are about to come to the end, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add on when it comes to trauma and how someone can heal. And also you can tell us how people can be able to reach to clarity.
I think there are a lot of things that I have to say about trauma because it's a subject of interest to me. I'm very passionate about it, so I could keep on talking about it. But I started with what I see most of the times has worked for most of my clients that I've worked with through trauma. And so for me to just be to tell people how to reach us and where to find us. Our office is at Finance House along Loiter Street, 13th floor. They can also reach out to us via we are also social. I always tell people that we're in the socials. We're Instagram. We are on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. Our website has very good, and resourceful material, especially our blog that people can be able to read as a form of self-help. And they can reach out to us via our numbers that I believe will be on the screen. So then they can either call or WhatsApp, and we'll be able to reach out to them and, just be able to assist them in terms of how they can book a session.
There's this lady, she's a trauma therapist. Her name is Dr. Anita Phillips in the US. She said something. She said, prayer is key, but therapy is strategy. I have encountered many people that came to me. They say they've prayed, they've prayed, but they are not healing. They are not overcoming. And that's why now the reason as to why Jane is here is so that she can also help us through the strategy so that we can also be able to heal. And I'm seeing how important therapy is because even me, I've gone through therapy. I remember when I was going through counseling psychology as a course, I had 12 sessions, 15 sessions in fact. And it really made me look at life from a different perspective. And it has helped me through the processes that you've talked about. And it has made me to also get to the place that I'm now coming back so that I can help other people to live victoriously, so that we lead others to do the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I like the fact that you have said it's strategy, because yes, you can pray, but then if you're not forgiving,
exactly,
the trauma still stays.
If you're not getting out of that environment,
exactly,
the habit,
if you're not getting out of the pigsty that we were talking about, the trauma will stay put.
If you're not changing your mind,
exactly, if you're not doing anything to transform your mind, then again, the trauma will stay put regardless of how much you pray, because there's a place for responsibility. Now you'll make me go back to talking about how to heal, because I just remember that one of the other key things.
You can talk about it, because it will help many people.
Yeah. One of the other key things is taking responsibility. I always tell people that there's no healing. There's nothing like healing without responsibility. What do I mean by taking responsibility? Most of us have learned how to run away from the things that we are uncomfortable about. And so because we are uncomfortable with, and because we have spent our lives running away and not dealing with the issue, then what happens is that it will not go away.
Yeah.
So some of us are running through lying. Some of us are running away, maybe through workaholism.
Through being busy.
You know, the busyness of life. Some of us are running away, maybe using sex. Using drugs, using relationships. You know, some people will even have panic attacks when they are not in a relationship. And so the more you keep running instead of taking responsibility, and responsibility means taking ownership. Yeah. And remember, there's two sides to the trauma. There's the victim side, but also trauma has a way of desensitizing people to an extent that they themselves can also lack empathy and start hurting other people. So if you're traumatized, then you're not taking responsibility and owning up to the fact that, oh, by the way, it's true, I am rude, I've been hurting people either through my actions or through my words, then there's no healing that's coming unless you're taking responsibility. If you're not taking responsibility in the sense that, yes, I got hurt in this relationship, but at the same time also asking yourself, how did I get here? Yeah. What is my role? Did I distort reality for me to find comfort in being, or to find an excuse in being in such a relationship? Yeah. If I did, then I need to accept it and own up to it, so that the next time then I'm able to clearly see the patterns that I have, the dysfunctional patterns that I have been repeating. That way my choices will be very different. So that's why I'm saying, if you're praying and not taking responsibility, then the trauma will stay put. Because taking responsibility means turning around and facing both sides of the trauma. I was a victim on one side, but also on this other end, what was my responsibility? So that now I know how to act for things to be different in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, let me just throw another nini. Is there something else that you wanted to add?
No, now this time around, nothing else. Nothing else. Because like I said, I can talk forever about trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least now people know where they can be able to reach out to you, how they can be able to reach out to you, so that they can also be able to heal from this. And I think with that, I can say thank you so much for being here. And until we meet again next time, God bless you.